65 staff at the WHO's headquarters were diagnosed with a CCP-Virus.
After detecting a positive COVID sample of frozen pork, Xiamen issued an emergency ban on students from leaving the city.
The CCP's Immigration Bureau imposed a travel restriction under the pretext of disease prevention.
Zhao Lijian deflected blame by citing a study alleging presence of the CCP virus in Italy last summer.
From the perspective of disease prevention, there are many major problems we haven't dealt with. First, the origin is unknown yet. There isn't an efficient cure so far. Our vaccine has the same level of efficiency, but will announce only after first-stage result available, Zhong Nanshan said.
China Central Television again blamed the pandemic on Italy. In a joint research by Italy's National Cancer Institute in Milan and the University of Siena, among 959 volunteers who participated in lung cancer screening between September 2019 and March 2020, 11.6% developed COVID antibodies at the beginning of this year or earlier. Among the blood samples that tested positive for COVID antibodies, 23 were collected in September 2019, 27 and 26 samples were collected in October and November respectively. That means they were infected before this point in time. These signs indicate that COVID began spreading at a time earlier than we thought.
I want to get to the bottom of this. As I've said, we have not been advised anything officially by Chinese authorities, and that would usually be the case. We were aware of some products having tested positive from Argentina that were in the same cool store, but not our products. I do want to get to this bottom of this. This is incredibly important to New Zealand. We are confident, of course, that our products do not and are not exported with signs of COVID on them, given our status as essentially being COVID-free.
These people sang communist songs and danced in Red Army uniforms. All of them had to obey the CCP.
According to the briefing by the Jinggangshan Economic Zone Emergency Response, an explosion occurred at the pharmaceutical company at 7:21 on November 17 in Jinggangshan, Jiangxi Province. 2 people were missing and 6 were injured. The explosion occurred at the wastewater distillation facility of Haizhou Pharmaceutical Company. The injured were sent to the hospital. The explosion site is under control. Rescue is being conducted at full strength. The cause of this accident is under investigation.
In Hongshan, Wuhan, urban management violently enforced the law. A group of urban management officers were seen beating up a truck driver.
A M3.2 earthquake occurred in Chongqing, Wanzhou. The students were woke up in the middle of the night and fled in panic. At that time, my bed was swaying from side to side, and I was scared. I grabbed my pajama and ran outside. I called my family to let them know I'm safe. My hands were shaking and I couldn't speak clearly.
The CCP is attempting to isolate the U.S. in reshaping globalization. On November 15, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, RECP, covering 15 member countries, was officially signed. Asia media praised the event as a boost for the Asian economy and the global economy. RECP covers the 10 ASEAN countries and China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. The agreement was supposed to involve 16 countries in negotiations, but India decided to withdraw.
Huawei confirms the overall sales of Glory business and no longer holds shares. The Aquarius Shenzhen Zhixin new information technology company. This is a self-help action initiated by the Glory-related industry chain. Huawei stated that after the delivery of Glory, they will not own any shares and participate in management and decision-making. Shenzhen Zhixin is jointly invested and established by Shenzhen Smart City Technology Development Group and more than 30 Glory agents and distributors.
The Hong Kong Communist bandit forces arrested the students, tied their hands from behind, forced them to the ground, and tortured them.
The CCP frantically discredited Trump. Bolton calls for the top Republicans to admit Biden's election.
The CCP's mouthpiece Global Times said publishing the Taiwan Independence Die-Hard list is an act of historic justice.
Carrie Lam asked the central government to handle the qualification for 4 members, claiming the compliance with the Basic Law.
In response to imminent U.S. sanctions, the CCP media stated that the party refuses to die without a fight.
Look, the Moderna coming out with these results, Pfizer coming out like a week after the election, a few days after the election. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, come on. Really. I mean, if those results had come out before the election, that would have had a material effect on the election. So you have to ask yourself the question, like, how did that happen, Chris? And you know, there are no coincidences here. There's no coincidences here.
The thing that was always fascinating to me is that no one on the right ever got mad at me for having a conversation with someone on the left. It was always the folks on the left that went nuts that anyone who was engaging in a conversation with me. I'm proud to be a conservative. I'm proud. I like talking to folks on the other side because I feel like sometimes maybe a bit of understanding conservatives bring them over. But it seems to me as though the left despises even having that conversation. I welcome it because I think the more we spread conservatism, the more we talk about policies, the more we win. And it just seems to me that the irony is that the party that talks about unity and inclusion is actually the party that doesn't believe in it.
Well, the more we speak together, work together, the more we can learn, and actually the better we can make the state of affairs that we have in this country. Because we're in deep, you know what, right now. We need a lot of help to keep this America as the great country we always knew it to be. And we've strayed a great deal. And your point is the reason that I left the Democratic Party, because I was told I had to do something. I had no choice. My life was going to be hell if I didn't do what I was told.
Overall, our strategy is focused on 2 things. First is this Dominion software. We know, as the mayor said yesterday, that the 6,000 votes, this was not a glitch. For the 6,000 votes in Michigan that we can prove, we're now looking into other counties. We cannot certify this election in the United States without answering where did this happen in all of these 29 states that used the Dominion software, because we know that these votes were switched intentionally, at least in Michigan. And the second thing we're focusing on are the watchers. When they're not allowed access as Republicans and they're specifically denied looking at the ballots, and you have a ballot that is opened and it's counted, but it's not fully transparent, those votes have to be invalidated.
Jenna, do you expect this case to go all the way up to the Supreme Court?
I do, and I think that this is really important for the American people to have meaningful access to the judicial system, which is supposed to be the fair and impartial arbiter, and we should have our day in court. We've had an investigation now that's only taken 2 weeks. This is a remarkable just occurrence across the nation, and so we need to make sure that we have our day in court, and I think that the judicial branch ultimately at the Supreme Court will take this very, very seriously.
Facebook and Twitter CEOs Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey set to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee tomorrow. They will address how their platforms seemingly censored the spread of the New York Post's bombshell report on Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and the deals he did with companies overseas while his father was vice president. Our next guest sits on the Judiciary Committee, and she will question both CEOs tomorrow. Joining me right now is Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator, great to have you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. What are your expectations for tomorrow?
My expectations are, first of all, that Jack Dorsey is going to come a little bit more prepared than he was when he appeared before Commerce Committee. Prior to the election, Maria, he looked like Tom Hanks from Castaway, and my hope is he's going to be a bit more forthcoming today. We want to talk with them about Section 230. And liability protections, the way they have censored, the subjectiveness that they put into that censorship, the way they approach content moderation, and the changes that we're prepared to make to Section 230 in order to take away that liability shield from big tech and to preserve it for new entrants like Parler. And big tech likes big government. They like big regulation because it keeps new entrants out. So our goal is going to be this light touch regulation, go after some of the areas that need to be addressed. We also know DOJ has their suit against Google. You have states attorneys general who have lawsuits, and you have the FTC that continues to monitor some of this activity. Congress has to take an action on both privacy and Section 230.
Tomorrow's news today, for all the hedge fund guys, let me give you a flashing news flash. Populism is on the rise. Nationalism is on the rise. Sovereignty is on the rise. It's an unstoppable force. It's an unstoppable force. You are not going to steal this election. Biden's already been considered, I think I saw a thing from YouGov, 80%, 78% of the Trump voters know this thing's trying to be stolen, right? He's illegitimate. He's illegal. He's feckless. No Democrats in the House, no Democrats in the Senate. They're not giving up a seat to go sign up for this disaster. It's not going to happen. There's not. I want to tell Klaus Schwab, the brains behind the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and there are forces moving that I think are leading to a Fourth Industrial Revolution. Okay, but we can't let that. Remember, the future is not to be discovered. The future is to be made. Your action, through human agency, we create the future. And let me tell you what the future is for all political types out there. It's what happened on Saturday, topped off and crowned by a great victory by Burgess Owens. We still haven't gotten down to the rest of the victories. I think you're going to pick up a couple more seats. And hat tip to McCarthy for recruiting the great guys. But I want to pivot from the forces of light. And if you ever had a doubt what side of the football you're on, in this self-organizing nature of this, just like the revolution, right? Just like the revolution, a self-organizing system. We're going to show you footage and footage and footage of Saturday. Vish. Footage and footage and footage of Saturday. Denver. This is the key to this. Okay, is this now we're going to the side of darkness? Okay, yeah. Fine. Okay, now the forces of light were out there with hundreds of thousands of upright citizens, veterans, moms, kids, blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, regardless of your gender, regardless of your ethnicity, regardless of your religion. And then comes the night. And so Maggie and Raheem, take it away here. What happened? What happened? This is BLM. This is Antifa. They're destructive. They are a destructive force. They are on the side of evil. Okay? It's not me saying it. Look at the streets. What do they got to do? They got to go destroy. They got to go into restaurants. They got to destroy to intimidate you. Well, that crowd on Saturday is not going to be intimidated. They're not going to back down. Number one, there's more of them than there are the bad guys. Raheem, Maggie.
Well, look, I mean, firstly, you saw during daylight hours on Saturday, completely peaceful demonstrations taking place all day, almost a carnival atmosphere out there, right? People meeting each other, exchanging ideas. Everything was friendly. And then as dusk set in, you saw the emergence of these black-clad Antifa BLM types at key areas around the city. This was not localized to just Freedom Plaza, but actually you saw it up on New York Avenue, you saw it up on Connecticut Avenue. You saw what they were trying to do is actually move throughout the city to a central pinch point. Now, some will argue that it's not big or clever for the MAGA people to go down to Black Lives Matter Plaza and demonstrate there, because guess what's going to happen? Sure, but they're exercising their First Amendment rights, and they are well within their rights to go down to whatever street they want and demonstrate, especially a street outside the White House. But as you saw the day go on, you see these pictures up on the screen for the video audience here, you'll see it, young people, families, children, in fact, being harassed and targeted by Antifa. There are Antifa activists and Black Lives Matter activists who are waving knives around and getting challenged. There was a video of a man, and I appreciate that this particular man was in the fracas himself, and voluntarily in the fracas himself, but had turned his back on it to walk away and was sucker punched in the face.
He got crushed.
He got crushed, yeah. And a lady runs by. I won't say a lady runs by, steals his phone.
Yep.
And the guy that had sucker punched him, I believe, was also apprehended, also arrested. Turns out, previous criminal charges, including one of child abuse. And we're seeing that time and time again with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, by the way.
These are bad units.
People who have criminal records, and a lot of people are involved with these associations that have criminal records as it pertains to child abuse as well. That's something that should stick in people's minds. What perverse people we're dealing with here. But just finally, Maggie, before I hand over to you on this, is, our lead story on the National Pulse at the moment is the fact that we still have not seen condemnations. No condemnations from Biden. These are Joe Biden, these are your guys on television right now. No condemnation from Kamala Harris. No condemnation from Nancy Pelosi. No condemnation from any ranking Democrats. No condemnation from congressional Democrats. No condemnation from local Democrats. No condemnation from Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Because they can completely ignore the entire story, right? Because the mainstream media is not going to play these clips. They're not going to cover this violence happening at all. And in fact, they're even scrubbing it from the internet on social media. Because,
what do you mean by that? Tell us that.
So the people that are seeing these clips, we know what's going on. We see this stuff. I follow a lot of other conservative accounts who shared the images like the ones that we've just played of people being assaulted, people being attacked in the streets by, black-clad individuals who are attacking Trump supporters and their families. But the mainstream media is not covering it all.
This is what the CCP does. It spreads dictatorship, lies, and monopoly everywhere. It takes cheap goods produced by the 1.4 billion slaves, and its core weapon, the market. The CCP uses those to threaten the whole world, and everyone is just like what Song Meiling once said. The birthplace of democracy, rule of law, and freedom sold her conscience for a few filthy coins and sided with the devils. The Great Britain is finished. Was it not? This time the same thing happened again, so it's all over for the Great Britain. Also, this time the CCP wants to repeat the same thing in America. They also want America to kowtow for a few coins. If this time they succeed through stealing the election, it doesn't matter who does it. I have no quarrels with Biden. And from the first time Hunter Biden went to Beijing, he stayed at Pangu Plaza every time. All of Hunter's deals with Ye Jianming started in Pangu. All of them, including Digital Empire. I knew it all, but I didn't expose them then. We don't want to be involved in U.S. politics. However, if you cut deals with the CCP, what you will harm next is the Chinese people. This is guaranteed. Because in the end, wool comes from sheep. It cannot be from pigs. They can let sheep live a little longer, but the sheep must produce more wool. It's impossible to replace it with pigs. Therefore, the Chinese 100 names are the victims. Why did they build the Great Firewall? And why must they brainwash you? Because there are things they don't want you to know. So when I was with the Americans, I asked, why don't you think about the Great Firewall? Why must the CCP use it to block things? Who is the victim of the Great Firewall? It's our Chinese people. The 100 names are the victims. What are they afraid of us to find out?
South Korea to strengthen social distance measures in Seoul. Pfizer to start a pilot delivery program for its COVID-19 vaccine in 4 U.S. states. Moderna's coronavirus vaccine is 94.5% effective, according to company data. IOC chief says no mandatory COVID-19 vaccination for athletes at Tokyo Olympics. The UK government has reached an initial agreement with Moderna to secure 5 million doses of their candidate vaccine. COVID-19 is sending Black, Latino, and Native American people to the hospital at about 4 times the rate of others. 4 astronauts dock at ISS after a 30-hour journey. Singapore's non-oil exports fall 3.1% in October, reversing growth from a previous month.
Dear mama, are you okay over there? Your son is crying and missing you, and sees you in his dreams. You sent take down the CCP, cause it's God's will, it's God's will. So I'll wait for you, and I'll see you when we end the CCP, yeah. So